So today in this video we're going to be looking at some of the things that you can do in your setup and your swing to help you draw the driver from the tee. It is absolutely incredible how many golfers I see coming to me for lessons who would love to hit the driver with a draw ball flight, or more importantly, just eliminate the slice or the fade shots from their game. In many cases, a lot of the movements that we would like to implement into their golf swing to help them just generally improve would actually help them with that draw ball flight as well. So in this particular video, you're just going to very simply learn about what is required at impact to hit that draw from the tee. And then you're going to learn about how you can adapt your setup and your swing in order to help those things happen. And obviously we're going to give you some exercises, some drills and some checkpoints to enable you to do this in your practice. Just before we get started, if you're not a subscriber, it is absolutely free. Clickable link down in the description box. So head on down there. Once you've watched the video, click that link and it means you won't miss any videos, especially if you click that little bell icon as well. So let's start off with very, very quickly, what needs to happen at impact in order for us to draw the driver? Well, it's actually quite simple. We need to hit the ball from the middle of the club face. We know that an off-centre hit will create some curves that we can't necessarily control. So it's pretty important that we're hitting the ball from the middle of the golf club, or if not slightly towards the toe. That's not too bad. So centre or toe in terms of strike. We need the golf club at the point of contact to be in the process of travelling somewhere to the right of your intended target. So we would call that an in to out swing. And we would need the club face to be slightly closed to that swing path. So if I can get my club travelling to the right of the target, the club face slightly closed and the centred contact, the ball will draw. Physics tell us the ball will draw. That's not difficult. What is difficult is creating the movements that will help that happen. So the first thing we really want to try and do is look at what we can do at setup to help us. Now this video really came about following a video I did probably some month ago now on how ball position affects the swing. And we were saying how when the ball is forward, we tend to create this over the top downward swing and we tend to get the club travelling left and we hit pulls and fades. And lots of the people in the comments box down below said, that's great, but how does that apply to the driver where we have to have the ball forwards? So when the ball is forwards in our stance, we're not going to go into too much detail in this particular video, but the golf club has a greater chance of travelling left at the point of contact because the golf ball is being hit much later in its arc. We can't get away from that, so we have to change our setup a little bit to offset that. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to make sure that you've got your golf ball teed nice and high to hit that draw. We want at least half of the golf ball above the top of the club head. What I'd love you to do then is when you take your starting position, I'd love you to actually have your shoulders slightly closed. So that's my shoulders pointing more up towards what you can see is the buildings on the right hand side if the flag or the green was my target. What this is really doing is it's suggesting that if the golf club is going to be tracing left through impact because of where the ball position is, I'm going to sort of offset that slightly by having my shoulders slightly closed. Notice how my feet aren't really changing, my hips aren't changing. So my shoulders being slightly closed does a couple of things. It will generally keep my head behind the golf ball, and it will generally mean that the arc that I swing on gets shifted a little bit this way, which suddenly helps us offset the fact that the ball is so far forward in our stance. If we get the ball up in the stance and teed low, which we haven't here, but if it was, that's when we start to get the golfers making this movement to try and hit down on the golf ball and they swing left. And they are really, really going to struggle to hit that draw. So tee it high, get the ball up in the stance and slightly close your shoulders. That's really going to help, and that's our setup. We then need to start thinking about how we are positioning the club face through the swing and making sure that we can do some things to help that club face get slightly closed to its path. So I'd like you to double check your grip, and I'd like you to have at setup certainly 2 knuckles visible, possibly even that 3rd knuckle. And as you look down, you're going to get your thumb slightly on the trail side of the grip. A great little checkpoint, and I do this all the time for grip, is place a T-peg between your thumb and your index finger. Place your lead hand grip on, and I want that T to point slightly behind the golf club as you set it up here. As you can see, as I put that up, I can see that T pointing slightly to the right of the club. That's going to generally suggest that the club face will be slightly more closed through my golf swing. If I'm going to shift my path out to the right, I have to have the club face close to that path, otherwise the ball will not draw. So We've got a good setup now. We've got a grip which is going to allow us to control the club face. We now need some in-swing principles and ideas that are going to help us do this. When you get to the top of your golf swing, what I'd love you to feel is that as you start to rotate towards the target, the club head is going to move downwards and behind you. Downwards and behind you would be this movement here. So you can see what's happening to the shaft angle. It's going to get much, much flatter as I try and push the club head down and behind me. So if I isolate that move from the top, that's going to look quite strange. It looks quite strange because I don't have any body rotation. If I make that move with body rotation, suddenly what happens is we get to a delivery position where the club head is behind my hands and it's also slightly lower to the ground than we would often see in some cases. The slicers will generally have the club head higher and they'll have the club head more out in front than this way. This is that typical, stereotypical slicers position where the club now is going to travel down and left. We're trying to keep the club back, but also trying to get the club head lower than your hands, because if it's lower than your hands, it gives us a greater chance of letting that club face rotate through the impact area. So what we've sort of done here is created a setup which helps because it's offsetting the fact that the ball is so far forward. We've created a grip which is more likely to create a slightly closed club face, and we've got a downswing movement which is going to help us push our club path to the right. So we've really got the ingredients that we need to create that desired impact for that draw. So this is what it would look like all together. Ball position is nicely forward, ball is teed high. Grip is slightly stronger and my shoulders get slightly closed. And all I'm going to do from here is I'm going to make a backswing and I'm going to try and push the club head down to the ground and behind me as I'm turning. And the last little thing in this video is to just have a nice free release of that golf club and really feel like the club head is accelerating past your hands. Many golfers I see slice because the golf club is being dragged behind the hands. They are holding on too much. They're not releasing the club head. So the last little point is nicely confident, release that golf club through. Now, there's lots of things that we've covered in this video. It's not easy. You know, we're not suggesting that the next time you go and play golf, you're going to stand on the first tee and hit lovely high draws. But the things that we've done in this video can really influence what happens at impact, and that's really what we need to do in order to draw that golf ball. So let's go ahead and see if we can hit this one. That green possibly will be in range if I get a good one. I'm going to make sure I've got all these things ticked off. My shoulders do tend to get a bit left at times, so I'm going to make sure they don't, and see if we can hit a high draw towards that green. Okay, perfect. Actually slightly overshaped. That's going to miss the green to the left, but the shape was correct. It started right, it was nice and high, it drew back. And if you're a fader or a slicer of the golf ball, as a starting point, you'd be very, very happy with that. A few little practice sessions, and you could turn that slight hook into a perfect draw, hit more fairways, more distance, the game's more fun. And you might also get some bragging rights in your four ball as well if they're all hitting their little slices into the trees on the right. So some things that you can do to help you draw the driver from the tee. I really think these are going to help you. Go to the practice area, get working on it, and let me know in the comments box how you get on with these drills. Thank you very much for watching. Usual stuff is down below, comments box, like button, all that kind of stuff. And share this video if you think you know someone who might benefit from the information within it. Thanks for watching. We'll hopefully see you back here again soon.